Well, welcome back. Amidst a pivotal election season where the stakes couldn't be higher, understanding civic literacy paramount. Why is knowledge so critical? Well, as we navigate a news cycle fraught with challenges to democratic institutions, what lessons can we draw about the media's role in preserving integrity? Joining me now is the founder and director of the Civic Literacy and Media Influence Institute at Learn for Life, Charles D. Ellison. And Charles, thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for having this conversation. And it's a very crucial and critical time to be having this conversation.
It really is. No, thanks for having me. Good
Yeah.
morning.
Good morning. And so when we talk a little bit about civics, let's just get our audience up to speed for somebody who may not be so familiar. As we talk about civics, how do you define it?
Yeah, civics is the process of governance. It's how we understand also governance. It's how we understand how various government functions work. It's the social contract, contributing to the common good, of course. Knowing the difference between the levels of government, the different branches of government, and how they interact. The executive, the judicial, and also the legislative branches of government. And so that's the literacy aspect, a part of it that's so crucial. Or knowing the different levels of government also in terms of state, local, and federal, knowing the difference between your state capital and the US capital, or also knowing how your city council works, right? So that's all civics, just governance and how all of that functions and understanding that better, and how you also, as a citizen, as a person, as a resident of the community you live in, how you contribute to it. One last point here, too. It's also understanding civics is you, civics is the people, we're the government.
Right. And we hear the word all the time, all politics is local, right? We've heard that
Right.
before. But when it comes to engaging from a civic perspective, that's not always the case. When people look, they think that, hey, something in regards to the federal has no real connection to what's going on right here at your doorstep. And like I have conversations with others and say, hey, listen, you need to pay attention to what's happening here because what's happening here consequently will end up at your doorstep. The importance of civic literacy in a time such as this, how do you gauge it?
Right. Civic literacy is so important because civic or high levels of civic illiteracy, Darren, created an environment by which people become demoralized and disengaged, and then suddenly they don't want to participate in these very crucial systems and foundations of governance. So the less literacy we have means the less engagement, less political participation, fewer people voting, and then suddenly you have that foundation of governance breaking down. So in a critical election year like this, it's really important that there's maximum voter participation so you get the kind of outcomes that you need. That's what I'm constantly instilling in my fellows at the Civic Literacy and Media Influence Institute at Learn for Life. Telling them about how you need to connect those demands that you're making, those protest demands, with politics, identifying those individuals or identifying the energy within yourself to run for office, or identifying those candidates who are most aligned with your demands or most aligned with your interests. And then once you get them elected, then producing those policy outcomes, getting that legislation or those bills passed, and that all equals an outcome. You see what I did there? That's that
Right.
mathematical formula that P plus P plus P equals that O, which is the outcome. That's how civics works. And so, when you have lack of civic literacy, that leads to lack of civic engagement. And then that essentially that starts deconstructing this republic we've built.
Well, I mean, we can talk about this next question I'm going to ask you for like 3 shows, 4 shows, but we talk about the media and news and the impact and the influence it has in the civic realm, right? There's a lot of
Right.
information, misinformation,
Right.
disinformation. How do you unpack that so that people can become better civically conscious?
Right. People have to understand that media creates the storyline and the narratives, right? Media has very just outsized influence over how politics, how policy making works. A lot of that's for the better, But as we're seeing, especially in the environment that we're in, a lot of that can be for the worst as well. It can be very destructive, especially when you layer social media on top of that. And when we look at mainstream media, we have to understand, the more civic literacy we have, we start understanding how mainstream media is a business. And as a business is trying to create those exciting storylines and that level of gossip to get more people watching and being glued, have their eyes glued to the news on a regular daily basis so they can get those ratings, they can get those hits, social media platforms included, to keep people engaged so they can keep their shareholders happy and keep those profits rising. We're seeing this with social media, keep that traffic going. And, that's how you build a business. That's how you keep that platform alive. But what's happening here is that all these storylines and narratives create an environment of disinformation. And the more civically illiterate you are, the less you understand how government works and how all of that's interconnected and the role that media plays in that, the more naive you are, in a moment, in a critical election like this, the more gullible you are and the more disengaged and demoralized you are. And then so we have like a high level of folks out there who either are one, unlikely to vote, which is not good because we just got, especially us as a Black community, we just got the right to vote 60 years ago. So you have a huge population of people who are unlikely to vote, or you have a huge population of people out there who are going to vote but making the wrong decisions, making the types of decisions that go against the need for a democratic republic or the need for a representative democracy.
Yeah, Charles, stay with me on this one here because you mentioned the Black community. Let me go a step further. We know that numbers are very critical to come out to be able to vote. A lot of people in the last election were paying attention to certain urban centers, whether that was in Pennsylvania or Georgia. We knew that those urban centers where their communities, where their brown communities, really made a difference in the last presidential election. That brings to light the question: how do you engage more people in communities of color to become more civically engaged, given the fact that there is disinterest, given the fact that you've got disinformation, given the fact that you've got all these factors that are rising up against being civically engaged? How do those on the inside really attract those from outside who are outside the bubble?
First, and thank you for the question. First, there will need to be a better, stronger bridge between the grass tops and the grassroots. The grass tops being our policymakers, our influencers, our community leaders, our grassroots obviously being us as the people, those folks in the field, on the ground, people in the community, the residents, the constituents. So, bridging that connection. Two, we need our pillar institutions in our communities to now step up the same way they did when they were living through Jim Crow. And then we came into that civil rights moment, which was the perfect combination, the perfect expression of that mathematical formula that I just shared a moment ago. The P plus P plus P equals zero, equals O, right? So we need our pillar institutions like our church, like our Divine Nine, like our HBCUs to really step up in a moment like this and encourage our young people and other people, other generations too, to become empowered, to feel empowered, and to become more engaged. To let people, the third step here too is as those institutions are stepping up, is to just let people know that they are the government. We are the government. We are the ones to make the decision, the ultimate decision to select those individuals, those special individuals. They're not elite, they're not above us. They are our representatives, but to select them to carry out our demands, our ideals, and also what's in our best interest, what's our common good, right? And so, letting people know that can really have a profound influence and impact on people, especially young people, especially people in our communities. When you let them know, hey, you are the government, you make that decision. And here's a fun way to go about exercising that is just by voting.
Charles Ellison, thank you so much. Got to leave it there. Great conversation. We definitely got to come back and talk more about this. Thanks much.
Hey, thanks so much. Take care.
Alrighty. Now, for more information, you can visit the website at thebnote.com and then follow him on Twitter or X at the B note. Don't go anywhere. We got more open coming up. I guarantee you'll be healthier right after this.